Yeah. All that means is Facebook will pick it all up on their Reels feed. So
There'll be another one out
yeah, there will instantly. Are we live? Or
Yeah, we're live.
you're looking at me like,
Yeah. We weren't sure
you
if we're
got to hear
excited.
the headlines. I'm the guy that's supposed to be. I'm on. Okay, so welcome to today's garden class. This is number 2 in the series. Last week was on house plants. Today it's on gardening for newcomers, beginners, insider tips. What's the season like? Just an overview of what the local gardening is. So some technical stuff I'll just share with you. I broke down a quick list. 2025 outlook. What are we looking at for next year? I'll cover what trends color-wise we're looking at. We actually track that kind of stuff because we're trying to get you to buy flowers if they're the wrong color. All the magazines have, pink and red's the trend. We want to make sure we have enough reds. So share some of that stuff. I want some feedback from you all because we're starting to set the garden center up. I got a few things that are kind of my core. Just tell me what you think. I really want to cover garden zones. Just simplify it. What are the garden zones? What are you looking at the tags? What are they? The local 7 seasons. What will you see as we cycle through the seasons? We'll cover that. Irrigation, watering mistakes. You're making mistakes right now more than likely. We want to make sure you don't kill plants because we have been dry like I've never seen. Not any moisture since you turn the irrigation off in November. If you're not careful, you'll have some damage. And then plants that thrive and Q&A. It's going to wrap all that up in about 50 minutes. And this is a small enough class where we can cover quite a few Q&A stuff. So it's small enough we can interact with each other on the fly. I think it's a bigger class. It's overwhelming. 2025, what we got going on here is we've been busy since winter started, so we got to slow down. So it goes until about Valentine's, and then the season kicks, and we are just flying by the seat of our pants. It actually starts this week. We got our first load of plants coming in this week. Fruit trees, lilacs, kind of a starting load coming in. Hey, Richard, good to see you guys. It'll be like like every other day will come in because we got to fill up 2 acres like before March 1st. It's a busy thing. So, and I'll share that seasonality with you. So we've been doing in the winter things we can't do in the spring. And so we're going over all new software. That's a scary thing. We've been on the same software platform for 20 years. It's so painful to change. Getting old. But the new trend is you got to be able to sell online. You got to show stuff online. People want to buy it. Younger folks, they want to buy it from their phone. And so we're going to have that ability. Some special things coming up. In fact, we'll have here in 2 weeks, if you're part of our group, but you all are part of our core folks, we're going to allow the folks, our core, to jump to the front of the line to be able to cherry pick off the stuff they want before it even gets here. So pre-orders, that kind of stuff. So fruit trees are coming out. You'll be able to grab your fruit trees because those run out so fast. If you're into fruit trees, you'll be able to grab them when they arrive. Your name will be on it. Peonies right after that. So peonies are one we're notorious for running out. These are 3 to 5 year old plants. We've been growing them that long. We had to guess 3 to 5 years ago how many we'd sell today and what colors. And so we kind of hold them close to the vest. We'd rather run out, leave you wanting, than to have too many and throw away an expensive perennial. So we purposely do that. Well, for our friends, we'll let you grab them ahead of time. We've got 2 incredible Pito peonies you've never seen before. I'm excited. I've sold thousands of peonies. So that's kind of that's what software will allow us to do. You'll see that float through every 2 or 3 weeks. You'll see some, the roses, you'll be able to pre-order the lilacs, we'll pre-order the tomatoes. We got a special tomato that's going to blow your socks off, produces like crazy. I've got 500 of them grown, and when I'm out, that is it. And I'll sell way more than that. So it's like a craziness that happens April and May. It's like when people are filling those vegetable gardens up, it's like a frenzy. It's very exciting. It's what we live for. So anyway, okay, that's what's going on. Before you leave, if you could give me some feedback. I put together a sample table just because we've got a problem with vines. It's just, I'm asking for my friends. We've got problems with vines, specifically berries. grapes, the things that grow up fast. It's hard to keep them upright because we're windy. They blow over a lot. And so we tend to put them on the ground where you don't see them. Now they don't sell. People go, where are the blackberries? They're right there at your feet. Don't you see them? No. So we're trying to get them up where you can see them. And Christopher Arthur, he's my go-to guy for fruit trees, all things edible. I said, Ken, why don't we just elevate them above the tomatoes and peppers and that kind of stuff? That's a good idea. Put the edible plants with the other edible stuff instead of trying to put them over here by the fruit trees. Just put them right dead center. So I threw this display together behind you. It's the tomatoes and peppers will be on the tradition. This is where our tomato vegetables things are, right here. But we're going to put, I know it's got honeysuckle right now, but that will be figs, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, and poisonberries, and all those kind of edible kind of things. But how do we elevate them and not have them blow over? So Mackenzie's doing a flooring project right now. She's reflooring her vinyl or her house. Hey, I need a box of that. So I just put it's cheesy, but it's lightweight, it's rigid, it's waterproof. I just threw some flooring up there to kind of corral them and keep them from blowing over. It's been working for 2 days. What I need help from you is, and you'll have to come in and tell me too, just give us some feedback, whatever. I know you're sitting in there in your pajamas, sipping coffee while the rest of us are talking gardening, but I'm glad you're in. But when you come in, let us know, can you reach it? Does it display well? Let me know. I think we'll put signage on the front so you know what it is, explain it, and then can you reach it? Is it too big? Is it too? I wish it was about 3 inches lower, but it's a foldable table with some flooring screwed onto it and a bridge around it. So if you kind of touch and feel, let me know what you think. Truly, positive, negative, whatever. That's my ask of you. Okay, back to the class. Zones. What are garden zones? There's 1 through like 10 or 12 or 15. There's like so many of them. I can't even understand what they all are. We are a zone 7. That's what we are. We flirt heavily with zone 8. Like I have a lot of zone 8 plants in my yard, and I'm up at 5,700 feet. That should be a solid zone 7-6. But I'm a gardener. You don't tell gardeners what they can or cannot grow. And I'm always trying to play with new plants and that kind of stuff. You folks out in Prescott Valley, Dewey, Humboldt, Skull Valley, you go to next layer down, you're definitely zone 8. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it goes from the lowest number, is like plants can grow down to like the Arctic. So zone 1 is I can go down to like minus 60 degrees. And then as you go up, it goes I can go to minus 20, I can go to 0, I can go to 10, I can't go to below 40. Those are zone 10, 11 plants. Those are Phoenix desert plants. If you even look at those plants cold, they freeze and die. They'll never, Chino's the same as all the rest of us. And you folks from Prescott Valley, I know you think you're so special, but you're the same as all the rest of us. We're all in this thing together. We're all at the same elevation. Actually, Pauldon's were the worst. All that cold air just rushes over the hill from Ash Fork that area and just settles on you every evening. Then it's hotter and windier, then it's colder. It's like extreme. It just takes what Prescott has and does extremes. But really what it comes down to is not so much your zone. We finish the zone idea, and then I'll tell you what, north, south, east, west. We're zone 7. That means we need plants that can go down to about 10, 5 degrees, somewhere in there. So we can go serious cold, like way below freezing. So they'll take on, these plants have antifreeze in them. So they don't freeze. They literally don't freeze. Some have more than others, and that's why they can take on more cold. But some plants, the mistake that I see a lot of folks come in, especially from our tropical areas, Palm Springs, Tucson, Phoenix, Scottsdale, they tend to summer up here and winter down there. They bring their collection of succulents, tropical plants with them, and they plant them, and they thrive in the summer. They look good in the fall. In winter, they turn to black mush and they die because they froze. They were tropical varieties, not zone 7, 8 varieties. So when you're looking at the tag, you'll actually see a zone. Good for a zone, whatever. We're bringing in plants. We curate the plants for you here so that we know these plants are proven to grow here. So you'll see a zone on there. You're a zone 7, which means you can grow zone 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1. that zone and lower you can grow. So it's not just 7 plants. You can also grow 6 plants, 5 plants, zone 4 plants, which I think are lilacs, forsythia. They go down to, I think, minus 20 or 30 degrees. So that's zones kind of simplified, oversimplified. That's pretty much what it is. They look at the temperatures of your area where you live, and they average it out over the last 20 years. They actually just bumped us, Prescott, Arizona, and this surrounding, call it Yavapai County. We're now zone 8. I'm not sure I quite believe it yet. I'm trying to experiment. They actually defined it because of warming or whatever that is. It's been warmer the last few years, couple decades. They just went, okay, you're not a 7B, you're not an 8A. They just moved us up 1 click. So, but just be aware, if you're a zone 8, you might want to have that plant. If you've got plants that are zone 8, that's Salvia greggii or autumn sage. So if you're yuccas, they can be zone 8s. You want those plants out in full sun. Crepe myrtles, full sun, hot. You don't want them where they're out seeing the radiating heat. They're not in the snow buried so much in the winter. Let the lilacs back there. They don't care about all that stuff. They don't care about cold. So you want to position it some. What it really comes down to, not Chino or Prescott Valley or Prescott, it comes down to north, south, east, west. If you're on the north, say you're in a neighborhood where you're on a knoll or a hill, I'm up at Eagle Ridge, up just up above Prescott Lakes, up in the hills, you can call it Prescott Heights area. I'm on a north-south facing hill. Actually, I'm on a north-facing hill. So they classic Prescott, dug out the hill, basement's down below, you drive into the garage at the top level, you got a 2-story house. You walk out the basement to the backyard. It's on an elevation, serious elevation, beautiful vistas. Overlooking the Dells, it's pretty, okay? My backyard is north facing. When it snows, hopefully we get some snow. We really need some weather here. We need some weather. I'll cover that in a minute. But when it does, it gets cold and it stays there for a while. The front yards on the south gets a lot of sun. That area, it just melts like classic. Don't scrape don't scrape it off. It'll melt by the end of the day. It's that kind of thing. The backyard, not even. So you're seeing this difference as you walk your neighborhoods. You'll feel closer down towards the dry washes. The cold air settles. So you feel the temperature change as opposed to up above when you walk up the hills, warm air rises. So it comes down to more of your best gardens are going to be on the east facing hills because it's kinder in the summer. It's first to warm up in the winter or spring during the growing season. So that's where my best gardens are. Your best houseplants are on the east face here. Just it's a kinder, gentler, brighter sun. So you have your houseplants on that side of the house, those windowsills. You'll find they do. That's where your African violets grow crazy. They do really well there. The south side can be hot. South, we have an intense sun. So the elevation has a lot to do with it. So I've grew my geraniums in like Cincinnati up full sun. My Japanese maples grew out in full sun in California. Here, this is a more intense sun. It'll burn you faster. You need more sunblock, more off. You need to hydrate. So do your plants. So you'll find that if you put a Japanese maple out full sun here, it will live. The plant says it grows in zone 7. I think it's a zone 5. It really thrives here. It's the sun that it's got that real thin leaf tissue to it, and you get that prevailing southwest wind with that dryness in May and June when the leaves are just coming out. It tends to get the leaves will be burned, so it will live. It's just the world's ugliest plant. It needs to be more protected. So where they thrive here is in more that north facing. So I've got my Japanese maples in containers in the back patio on the north side. They only see sun first thing in the morning and right at the end of the day, and that's all they ever get. And they thrive. They do great. If I were to put that in full sun, that's a mistake I find a lot of folks make. They're used to growing it in their other gardens at lower elevations out here, and here, because the sun is more intense, it tends to burn them. So we try to help you with that. So this new website we're setting up. When you see the plant, it tells you it needs this much sun or less or more. It'll tell you sun wind factor. for us. It's not just the national tag. So on the plants, you see the national tag, but then we try to localize it. When you see a Waters Garden Center sign on the front, we've actually said, oh, but here's where it really grows. I can't retag all the plants, but I can retag the signage, which is the same thing that's on the website. So I can do all that for you. So we're trying to help you, or just ask us. We have a whole bunch of horticulturalists. You know what our jobs are? It's actually a sickness. We drive through a neighborhood and go, oh, look at that plant. I can't believe it's growing that well there. Oh my God. We're looking at where things are going and how they're going, how big they got. So what you'll find is because of the dryness and because of the alkalinity, there's a little bubble here in the Southwest where the water is super alkaline. The rest of the country, everywhere else, is acidic. So you're always trying to fight this acid breakdown. So things become your pH. If you had a hot tub or a pool, you're always measuring the pH. That's what we're talking about. So if the pH is real low, that's very acidic. The pH is real high, it's very alkaline. Our water is very alkaline. Some of you, especially out in Chino, Paulden, literally I was farming out in Chino for a number of years. The water was a great water source, unlimited water. Filled up, greenhouses are hundreds of feet long, never out of water. But the pH was 9.2, which is virtually, you can clean your toilet with that kind of water. It's just so alkaline, it's crazy. Nothing would grow. We had to have acid injectors in the water, trying to correct the pH, and you'll have to do some of that yourself. So if you're on a well, you're probably going to want to watch that a little bit more because you don't know what it is. The city of Prescott, most of all of Prescott Valley, half of Chino Valley, we're all using the same, we're doing the same well, pump it out, we ship it in, we store it up around all these different water tanks, we're all using the same water. You're going to be probably in that high 7 to low 8 range, my guess. Now, when you're reading your books, it says, oh, the perfect balanced pH is 6 to 6.5. That's the perfect balance. That's like rainwater. It's like perfect. You'll never reach that. You can reach it for a moment, and as soon as you turn that irrigation on, it's going to go right back up. The soil takes on whatever pH the water is. So if you're watering, it's a natural thing. You can correct it for a bit. The way you really correct it is more organic matter. So that's why the Midwest is so acidic. They've got all this organic. They got 8 foot of topsoil. We've got millimeters of topsoil, if you have any topsoil. Some of you out in Granville, the new developments, they had the graders come in, they scraped off all the topsoil, and you're left, some of you are literally with dead soil. There's not one living thing. You'll dig in there, not one living thing you'll ever find. Because all that organic, the top layer has been scraped off. So you have to rebuild some of those areas to have it, to revitalize that soil. We'll show you how to do that in a minute. So those are just some real quick things. Your pH is going to be high. So when you read HGTV or your Fine Garden Mag says, oh, it's fall, we need to make sure we add lime to the soil. Never do that. Lime is, for the rest of the country, you've got very acidic soil, it raises the pH and makes it more alkaline. Well, you don't want to add lime. In fact, I don't even sell lime in the store because I don't want you making a mistake. You'll come in asking, I know you've been watching or reading the TV or whatever, saw your feed, say now's the time to, it's like the lime fairy came out, just give us lime everything. Whenever you see that, you want to do the opposite here. The opposite of lime is soil sulfur. Sulfur makes things more acidic. You're always trying to lower the pH, always, because our water is so alkaline. Every time you turn that irrigation on, the pH wants to creep up. Makes sense? So the foods that we make, so we make a food here, all-purpose plant food. The reason I made this is I kept trying, I was one of the largest, we sell a lot of fertilizer because your soil has no redeeming value to it. There's no food, no nutrients, just this high pH rock, caliche. You heard that word? Caliche, I think in Native American terms, is concrete in the soil. It's a calcium layer. It's a white, kind of chalky, gray looking. It's got a definite lighter color to it. You'll see it in the road cuts. You'll see this band of lighter colored soil. That's caliche, and it's as hard as concrete. water will not penetrate it. So you need to correct some of that. We'll show that when we start to show you how to plant things. But you do in a second. So I tried to get them to make me a fertilizer for us. They said, no, your market's not big enough. Don't blame them. So I had a friend of mine down in Casa Grande said, I'll do it for you. Do golf courses. What's your recipe? I got it right here. So we made this one years ago. It's got cottonseed meal, which is acidic, bird guano, great nitrogen source, acidic. And then we actually added sulfur into the plant mix. No other natural brand does it. They're always adding. They're adding lime because they're trying to sell to the big markets, not us. And so this actually has sulfur in it because we know that the fertilizer will react better when you add the sulfur to it. It's got kind of an earthy smell. If you used it before, how many people have used it before? Thank you very much. It stings. It smells earthy. Your gardeners will like the smell. That's the cottonseed meal and bird. Yeah, it's kind of. But the point being, we put sulfur in that. That's why it reacts. That's why it works so well. The vegetable fertilizer does not have to. I make two for you folks online. Great question. Thank you. I'll give you a $20 bill after this. We make two. We make three, actually. Make the water soluble, but we make two. One is this one. It's the original. We call this all natural, but because we put sulfur and iron in it, we can't call it organic. So since you put a mineral, you cannot technically call it organic. So my true organic folks, I made a vegetable and fruit tree food, and that one we didn't put sulfur in it. What I did do is, because it's for vegetables, I really juiced it with calcium. So we're notorious for having a lower calcium count, and what happens is when you have low calcium, the fruits will be smaller on your trees. The tomatoes will get this black spot. This is what they call it blossom end rot. Have this black rotting area in it. Those are all indications of calcium deficiencies. I know you're going to struggle with that if you're growing vegetables, you're growing fruit trees. So we just made a formula. We just juiced it with 6,4,4,7, 7% calcium. That's the mix for that. So we're trying to make.
But does that regulate pH?
Doesn't regulate pH. Or you just get a bag of sulfur, put right on there with it. Or a lot of folks that are, how do you change the pH? Lots of organic material and lots of compost, manures. Generally, those soils are richer anyway. So generally, that will lower the pH unto itself, depending on the water that's in there. What's that? Potting soil is great. That's got it. The main ingredient. So you mentioned I'm growing in potting soil. That's what I grow in too. Raised beds and containers. So I've had a couple back surgeries. I can't dig a hole like I used to. And so if it's a little plant, like 5 gallons, maybe a 10, I'll do it myself. This is a pretty small hole. It's 15 or bigger. I just hire it out. The guys are going to come out and plant that for me. That's it. So I have lots of raised beds, lots of containers for my flowers, my vegetables. And that addition to this. The reason it's not, I don't put sulfur in this. We put a 555 organic fertilizer in this. So it kind of gets it going fast. But because the main ingredient is peat moss is very acidic, and so it tends to lower that pH to plant plants. Just while we're on this, just containers. Let's just touch on that since we got this up on the bench. Soils are very mysterious. You go up to the Great Wall of soils at the box store. They are renaming this stuff. Some of it's just junk they took in a bag and put pretty ink on it. It's just junk. So they'll call it raised bed soil or something else. A true potting soil. This is our grower's mix. Our grower made this many, many years ago. And we play with the recipe. We're trying to figure out, we test it side by side with other brands. Can we find a better recipe? If we can, we'll change it. We can't, so far we'll find a better one for here. And here's the reason why. Potting soil, you want it to drain. But you don't want it to drain too fast in a dry climate. The secret is the aridness. How do you have aeration? Because plants, they need air at the roots. If it stays too wet, they'll just get root rot, they'll dampen off, they'll still get dwarfed, they won't grow as well. Give them some air, but they don't dry out so fast, they burn up. It's a razor's edge trying to get that right. Then the pH and all this other stuff we've been talking about. So we made this. This is made to plant directly into. You don't cut it, don't mix it. Just put it right in your pot, plant it, plants take off and thrive. Put a tomato in this stuff. I got some customers who just cut it open, throw a tomato in it, going, I'm good, and it will grow. It's that's what it's made. That's what a potting soil will do. A good potting soil. There's basically 4 products down there. We make them all. They're all organic. Potting soils are number 1 seller, just because we sell so many containers. What is a container? Let me finish your 4 points, or I guess there's so much. I'm getting excited. There's so much I got to share with you. There's 4 products: potting soil, mulch is our second, because every time you plant a tree or a shrub, we need compost, basically, to loosen the soil, to keep the soil from compacting right back down. Plus, there's no organic matter in your soil. You're going to have to add some of that. We'll explain that in a second. The other one is topsoil. Topsoil, basically the recipe is our mulch, premium mulch. We added sand. I kept hearing word, these hilltops, it's folks in the hilltops. I put my topsoil as a topsoil and it blew away. Okay, that's a problem. So we added some sand, which gives it weight. And so now that's really made, it's made to not blow away. It's made for filling up holes. I ran into a big boulder. I need some filler. I need some inexpensive, just fill it up, make it go. It's not made to grow in because sand stays so wet, so moist, so heavy. So it's one of the heaviest bags. I hate loading up topsoil for folks. It's back-breaking. It weighs a lot. And the last one you've got out there is manure. And so we make our own manure. I know it seems weird. I'm the only guy you know that actually sells manure for a living. I get off on making manure recipes. What happened was we used to be in the market against the Walmarts, that kind of stuff. I think it was only $2.99 bags of manure at the best price in town. It just rained. I load this bag up. It's dripping now. I'm putting it in the back of this Lexus. But this is wrong in so many ways. We got to be out of this. I got to be the cheapest for poop in a bag. I got to figure out how to deodorize it, and so I'm not embarrassed to sell this stuff. So I actually made the secret to deodorizing manure. You just compost it for an extra year. So most manures, if you get from the boxer, they basically connect the bag up to the back of the cow. And they just collect it, they bag it, and here you go. You want some? High in salt, it's not composted, it just stinks to high heaven. If you take it and compost it in a huge pile, it steams a little bit more, it just comes right back down. You're not going to find poopy parts in the bag, which you do the other ones. It just looks like a really super rich compost, and it doesn't stink. So we have a deal, we call it barnyard manure. So we're taking the bedding, we're taking the different manures, and we compost it along. Right now it's deodorized manure. Those are the 4 products: potting soil, mulch, topsoil, poop, barnyard manure. Does that make sense? I mentioned pots. So containers. So we're famous for containers. A big mistake. Don't make this mistake. Our problem is we have a lot of influence of Phoenix. Phoenix has got a buyer that does all the stores for Depot or Big Blue Box, whatever it is. Send 50 of those to every one of my stores. Was from Tucson to Phoenix to Kingman to Prescott to Flagstaff. And some of those products should not be sold up here. But Costco is notorious for this. So you find that it's cheap. There's a reason for it. And you'll enjoy it for one season, and then it will break or break down or it will fall apart. Clay of your containers is a big one. And here's the reason why, I just kind of share it with you. So your grandparents grew in a lot of terracotta, that orangey looking Italian terracotta clay. That grows really well. It's a great way to grow plants. It won't winter over for us though. Because as water gets inside that clay and with this freeze and thaw, it expands and shrinks. And all of a sudden that clay starts to flake, crack, break. The glazes start to come off. Because it's all about the quality of the clay, the density of the clay first and foremost, and then how fast it goes through the kiln. So you want it to harden. You want it to go through the kiln and be rock solid. A good clay pot will last for decades. A bad clay pot will last for no more than a season. So those are made to garden in now, dump it out, store it underneath the deck or the garden shed, someplace up. They're not meant to go through the winter. So watch that one. So just kind of be aware. And a big mistake is a lot of folks come from other areas where they love the Southwest look. Notice we're notorious for our Mexican, Native American clay. That's cheesy. It's not very good clay. And then they fire it in a fire pit, not a kiln. So that's where you get this beautiful charcoal, almost artistic looking pots to it. I've literally seen those melt in the rain. They just have they're made for pretty, or for the desert, where it doesn't rain, never freezes, nothing ever happens, and they don't garden down there. So it's made for that. But if you garden that up here, so I don't sell that here for a reason, because I've had too many I've tried, because I think they're just beautiful. So our specialty here is heavy, dense clay that will winter over for you. Okay, so you'll actually hear it. It's got a density to it, and they're a little bit heavier. So just kind of that's a good quality. This pot, I literally had one that I gardened in for had to be since my boy was small, and then he started to learn how to drive. And we always bought our kids stick shifts. I'm a strong believer in they need to know how to to work all four limbs, not just put it in automatic and drive and go. And the thinking was it didn't work very well, but if they were using all four limbs, they couldn't text and check their phones as easily because they're doing this. It finds out that kids can do that. Didn't make any difference, but he's learning how to drive our stick shift truck, a little Ranger, and he missed our drive was on a slight slant. He missed it, and he backed into my gigantic oxblood red container that I gardened in for years. He didn't bust it up, just cracked right down. Just would crack right just like that. And so, dang it, I missed that pot even today. Doggone it. But he learned how to drive the stick shift on my dime, my driveway. But that's a good quality pot. They'll last for years and years and years. Let me do this. I'm going to hand these out because we got to cover watering. And the water guide, you know what? I'm not sure. Here, take a quick screenshot of that because I forgot to put that in the links on the right. Now you got the other handouts. I'll get that. I'll put this in after the class. Or tell you what, put your email in the comment section. I'll make sure I'll email this to you after the class sometime this afternoon, and you'll get the water guide. But for you folks, my business card, it's not to me, not to look at my pretty face, or look at the back of that. So you take that one and pass it around. And really what I'm after, I'm noted for my marketing prowess. So we're pretty good at marketing, promoting ourselves. I had a good friend of mine, he started True Values. Ken, you're probably 80. Ken, you're the best peddler I've ever met. Good. That's a huge compliment, I think, coming from you. I take that as a compliment. Great. What I'm really after is my logo in every irrigation box or garden journal as possible. So tape this inside your box as a reminder, when do I turn that irrigation system on? When do I turn it off? How often should I water again? So a quick summary of this. It's broken down into 2 seasons. One, the growing season, which is April through October. The other one is winter, November through March. So we're in the winter growing season. You'll notice you should be watering established plants. Things that have been in the ground, they've rooted out for at least 1 season or more. They're fully rooted. You're watering those plants twice a month. How much should you water? It's never how much. You water the same amount every time, whether it's winter, summer, fall, spring, always the same amount. The question is frequency. How often should I cycle? How often is that ground drying out? Your ground is bone dry right now. When plants get damaged in winter, it's when they go through a dry spell and it gets real cold. So plants have antifreeze that's naturally occurring. They've got antifreeze. And if they're hydrated, they can flush that antifreeze back and forth to structure the plant and protect themselves. When they're dry, the stems will dry out and we'll get what we call winter burn, winter kill. And you'll see this show up. I guarantee you'll see this next spring. When they start waking up in March, April, you're going to see the tips of Rhytophotinia, some of your blooming plants. They're blooming towards the heart of the plant. Out here, it's like they barely are leafing out. Those are all winter damage. They weren't watered enough in the winter when it was cold. So the damage is I'm already starting to see some damage in my gardens, and I know better. I just cycle it off. I didn't get it quite right. I've been traveling. I got a new granddaughter in San Antonio is there, not watching my garden. Just something to watch. So make sure you are watering. I would say if your landscaper turned your irrigation off in November and they haven't watered since, you should probably go out at least by hand, or maybe turn it on manually at the valve. Maybe just turn it on. So you kind of look at that. If you got a backflow preventer, you got to watch that. So there's some things with it. It gets complicated, but maybe the old-fashioned way. Your grandparents took up a watering can. They just went out and they watered their core plants, especially for the new plant that was just put in last year. Those are the ones that are more vulnerable because their root structures aren't quite large enough yet. A great big spruce tree or Arizona cypress, they're probably okay. Would they be healthier with a bit of help from their gardeners, their homeowners? Yes, they would like that. But some things are critical. So kind of watch those. Kind of take that. During the peak of the season, you're probably watering established plants. We're talking June, May. It's dry, it's windy, things are growing like crazy. You're probably watering weekly. Okay, that's established rose bushes and honeysuckle and fruit trees. Those are all the established trees and shrubs. And I try to break it down into new plantings. If it's brand new plants, the roots are they're only this big. They haven't grown out yet. So they're more dependent on you than ever, probably twice a week. What I find a mistake a lot of folks make, they water too much. Some of you, you're Americans. We love to add 40 cents and supersize it. More is better, bigger is better, more. We're generous people, especially gardeners. You can be too generous with plants when they're first growing in the ground because we have some heavy clay soils and the soil doesn't dry out as quickly as maybe we want. Plants need oxygen at the root level, and if you take all those air pockets, you fill them up with water, the plant will literally drown to death. We call it root rot. You'll smell an odor as you pull it up out of the ground. It died or faded or it's just not growing. You actually smell it as you pull it up, or the roots will stain or has a dark, rich, has this gooey sewer smell. Those are all indications of root rot. You're watering more than the plant could take up or the ground could receive. So plants like to dry out in between each water cycle. So this will get you close. Won't get you exact. What I find is in my backyard because it's in the north, it doesn't need watering as often as the front yard. Front yards are full sun. The driveway is right there. I've got nothing but raised beds. Lots of, when the kids left home to college, I took that lawn right out. We're not going to play soccer anymore, and I paved it over. It's the most beautiful courtyard you've ever seen. Fountains, but it gets hot. So I have to water more often in that front yard. My backyard, it's all natives. I do not want to go out and maintain a deadhead and do all this stuff, but we entertain a lot. It's big patios, it's barbecues, it's hot tubs, it's fire pits, lots of pavers and native plants. I go out and prune them once a year. That is it. I'll fertilize periodically because it's lots of pretty. Some of your native plants can be very beautiful. You need some nutrients to be able to pull that off. The front yard, because I'm a gardener, I do need a space to touch and feel pretty much every day. I like hummingbirds, butterflies. I want to sit out there, read my paper, sip my coffee in the morning, watch life around me. And I want to go, it's therapy for me. I like sipping my coffee and deadheading flowers. It's a sickness. But I like doing that. It makes me feel good. I set my phone down. I just don't think about it. I just watch hummingbirds float around. So I got a high density, high garden area just for me. But it's not the whole half acre. It's just the front patio area where you enter the yard. So you can do strategies like that as well. Your deck may be the place for you. Wherever your place is. You're obviously gardeners. You're here at a garden class in January. That says a lot about this group right here. Just in case you're wondering, yes, you're being judged right now, and I know who you are. You are hardcore. How about you got beautiful gloves, just beautiful hats. Gardeners just love nice hats, nice gloves. You can just go in your garden and you see it. And so kind of Said help, questions on waterings, help you get you close. You can tweak it from there. Main point now is make sure if you haven't watered this winter, do it. If we haven't had any moisture. I know I think we had a trace yesterday. I think I might have seen there was a wet spot on the roads yesterday. Wasn't enough to do anything for my house. May have at yours, but not at mine. I heard Chino Valley got 1,000 raindrops yesterday. That was all they got. I don't know where they were. There's 1,000. So that was it. Okay, water. Let me make sure I'm okay. Water, zones, containers, irrigation. Oh, we're doing good. Dang. No question. We're okay. Let's go over how to plant. Okay. Then we'll go over some plants. Let's see. What's a new plant? Let's take this one. This plant is so confused. This is a camellia. You folks in California, it's been so warm. This is one of the first plants to bloom of the season. They always bloom like kind of February, March. But it's been so warm, they said, I think I'll just start now. And so right after this will be the winter blooming jasmine. Right after that will be the quince. Right after that will be the forsythia, the lilac. You can just count down. You just watch the different plants bloom. So it looks like the season will be about 3 or 4 weeks early this year than it was last year, just because the weather changed. Now, I say that. We'll have this bitter cold that will just sock us in, and we won't go anywhere for 3 days. People will run to the grocery store and empty out the shelves because they're worried about 3 inches of snow. You folks in the Midwest, Northeast, you kind of go, what are these people thinking? What's going on? It's how we're raised. We think we're all going to die when there's a little bit of cold. This is a flowering camellia. Camellias do not grow here, most of them, because they're tropical plants. They're zone 9 plants, 9, 10. This one is a zone 5. I think it goes down to -10. Some crazy cold. I've literally grown this at several of my houses, hedgerows of them. It's just a great little plant. If you want evergreen, blooms really early, camellia, I just love camellias. A corporate event, corporate move, took me to Roseville, Sacramento, Folsom area for that Northern California area. Who just fell in love with growing camellias. Couldn't have them. We found this one's called Ice Princess. The name kind of implies it. It will take the cold. It's one of the only ones that will grow here. I think there's 3 colors: pink, this reddy color, kind of an apple blossom white color. This one you would grow up full sun. Most other places here, it grows best in that east facing to shaded areas. So I grow this in a container on my back patio. Loves it. It's consistent. It's evergreen. This is what it looks like in the winter. Yes, if it's warm in a sunnier area, it will bloom early. So this is camellia. Now, how would you plant this? If it's in the ground, this is a classic 5-gallon size plant. So this will be hard for you contractors. I'm going to make your lives really easy. You don't need a backhoe. Don't need jackhammers. You're just going to dig 1 shovel just as deep as the bucket. That's all you need. Plants, that taproot is a myth. Doesn't happen. It just goes down and bumps into more rock, caliche. The roots are going to go sideways. If you know the roots are going to grow sideways, dig a hole that encourages roots to go sideways. So you're going to dig a hole that's about a bucket on each side, kind of round, saucer shaped. That's good. You're going to take that soil that you dug out over here to the side. Some of you are going to need to filter your soil because it's so rocky or so crummy or so you got chunks, not soil. Chunks, not good. Finer parts, good. So anything bigger than a golf ball needs to be filtered out because that stuff heats up in summer and just bakes the roots. The particles are so big they don't have enough room to hold water molecules. You want smaller, so smaller is better. So some of you are going to be left with no soil. Some of you are going to hit a boulder, pull it out. You're going to go, there's my hole. You need to add some soil. So you get into different things. Most of us, as you get towards Granite Mountain, it's real kind of a crushed granite. It's real light and sandy up here, then it gets like this hard pan underneath. As you go up that 69 corridor, Prescott Valley, even really Chino, that whole valley area, it's heavy clay with a caliche layer. Up towards Dewey, it's got heavy caliche layers. You just count on it. The ranch, caliche layers. You just count on it. I've seen too many of them. So as you deal with that, we're trying to add some mulch It's this stuff, to that soil. So you're going to filter it. You get rid of this just so you folks on camera. I know you're there still. Trying to include you. We gave you a front row seat just so you're right there with us. So does that show up on camera okay, Johnny?
Yeah.
Here. Maybe a mulch. That show up okay? All right. This is basically, it's compost. Okay. For you folks in the Midwest, mulch means like bark. It's not that. Here we actually compost it. It looks like a rich coffee ground kind of stuff. This is made, developed to add to your native soil to keep it from compressing right back down to clay soil. Or if you've got real sandy soil out towards Granite Mountain, it'll help add some organic so it holds some moisture around the root balls. We need to modify the soil because there is no organic matter. If you add some of this, the worms will find their way. The mycorrhizals, the beneficials that attach themselves to roots, just whole biology things that happen, it just ignites that in the soil. So you may be out in Granville and where that new subdivision going in where they scraped off all the soil. You can't put 10 truckloads of soil back, but you can do it by hole. So you're modifying each planting hole. That's the way you do that. So you screen out your soil. You might have a half a yard or whatever soil in your planting hole. Take about 25% of this to your native soil. So if you're thinking of scoops, 3 scoops of native soil to 1 scoop of mulch. Blend that all together. I've cheated and gone up to about 50-50. Let's say I hit a boulder or something, I need a little more. I don't have any topsoil in the truck, I can go 50-50. Other than that, too much of this gets too soggy, gets too wet, it's too organic, and so it stays too moist. So there you switch out, put some topsoil. Most of us are going to have 25%, 30%. You can eyeball it. Blend that together. That's what you use to backfill around the root ball. Pack it down. Here's the mistake. Phoenix tells us to rain harvest. Make sure your plant's below grade. It's in a divot. We're going to gather up as much rain as we can. They never see rain, so they can say that. Here we actually have 19 inches of rain a year. We're going to see rain. It might all come in like 3-day periods, July or August. We're going to see rain, and when we do, it's a lot of it. They're like gully washers, like storms, or like it's bad. You do not want to gather up water in that root ball. You want the root ball to be at soil level or even above. Give you a quick tip. I guess I ought to cover this too. We're going to always ask, what should I do with the root ball? My grandparents always beat it up. There's no soil left. Don't do that. Here, I would just basically, this is the perfect root ball. It's fully rooted, but it's not starting to spiral. So that's a happy plant. Here, I might just kind of rub it so these little fine root hairs. I'll just do that. Sometimes, nope, there's nothing at the bottom. Some things like willows and cottonwoods will start to form at the bottom of that. But I might just try to loosen them up. That's all I would do. If you see a plant doing this, return it to your garden center or wherever you bought it. Because a plant that starts it's root bound, basically a leftover plant from last year. You couldn't sell it, so they're still trying it. It's overgrown now. They should have shifted it or upsized the container so it had more room. They didn't do that. They just sold it cheaper. So there, just once a tree starts doing that, it just keeps doing it. There's no way to undo it. They say to root prune it and that kind of stuff. This is what you want to see. Backfill around this, pack it in. You want no air pockets around this. You want to pack it down. The bigger the man, the heftier, just jump on it. Make sure no air pockets are left. Because roots won't go through air. They like to go through soil that's been organically kind of done. Anyway, the soil will be at level, or maybe even if you folks out in that heavy clay soil, what I've done with that, I'll leave about that much of the root out of the ground, and I'll slowly mound up the soil. So if we get a real heavy monsoon rain, I didn't throttle back my irrigation in August when it's raining. I tend to overwater then. At least that much of the root can breathe. So it's kind of like leaving your nose out of a pool. Allows you to breathe. Okay, I can tread a little bit more, just to make sure I can breathe. Plants are the same way. They need air up here. So the other big mistake I find, so don't put it in a divot where it's down below grade. Put it at grade or even a little above. It's because we're trying to counteract our water cycles. So July, August is a wet period for us. We call it the monsoons here. It's just a water flow from the south comes up. And then March is typically a wet season for us. Heavy, wet, just real heavy snow, wet snow that stays there, just slowly goos through the soil. That's when you get some damage. Those are 2 times where you're going to see some root damage possibly. Okay? This corrects that. Okay. Let's see. So, the other mistake. Just trying to help you not. You learn gardening by making mistakes. But if I can help you by sharing some of mine, so you don't have to make them, it'll help you. The other one is a lot of folks like to bury plants. This top of this root ball, you should see it when you're done. It shouldn't be buried. And whatever you do, don't put soil on this bark area. Especially trees. Because if you're adding some organics, you're enriching the soil so start to activate. There's some bacterial stuff they'll start eating the sugars in the tree. They'll call it crown rot. So rot's a big deal. So the bacteria will start eating the sugars and it literally girdles the tree and it'll die in about 18 months. Just leave this exposed to the air. Don't bury it. It's all about making sure the plant can breathe. All plants. It's true of all. Your question was, is it true of all plants? Yes, it's true of all plants. Yeah. Except okay, yeah. Okay, there's always an exception. Except tomatoes and grapes. Those 2 will get very deep. If you take a blackberry or raspberry, even put any dirt on that new cane, you wouldn't think that'd be the case. It would die like that. It might send another sprout up, but that cane will die. So just keep the soil exposed. Just find too many folks bury it and they start going, oh, they've got soil slopped up against the trunk. And they wonder why it died 2 years out, it died. But that's why. So just trying to help you. Okay. Now I think we got covered everything. That's what I want, the core zones, watering, plant. Oh, I didn't finish this. We got all backfilled, planted it right, it's all good. Fertilize it. A handful of this. This is my lesson. I'm making it my soapbox a little bit. So I used to be the biggest synthetic seller of fertilizers. This is like all the big names. We sell a lot of fertilizer. I'm a strong believer in fertilizer. The synthetics, what happens is that it's a petroleum-based carbon molecule they're using. So your big names are using synthetic fertilizer. They juice the plant like that, like heroin, basically. So it just juices them. And they take it up. You see the response right now. The problem with a rainy season, a place like ours, it can rain. It's so water soluble. A lot of it just flushes and goes right down the washes. If I'm going to sell 4 truckloads of fertilizer, I personally have the ability to poison all of us in the community because it's going to go back into the groundwater. That's just not right. I think we all should be using organic fertilizers. And here's the reason why. Organics are birdseed, bird guano, cottonseed meal. They're organic, but what happens is they break down much slower. So instead of fertilizing in 3 weeks, synthetic, it's fertilizing over 3 months. This is going to actually do better for you over the long run. It's going to be healthier for your plants. So that's kind of my quick 90-second preaching. I don't preach anymore, but I'm a big believer in organic fertilizers. That's why we make our own. That's personally why our family decided to go down that track. But I think it actually works better. I would take a handful of this and sprinkle around that new planting, go back to how to plant. So mulch, backfill, heck grade a little higher, add some food. There's no food in that soil the way it is. You need to add some. Okay. And I'll water it in with root and grow because that plant is going to freak out. You take it out of its bucket, it's the only thing it's known its whole life. You put it in your ground with heavy clay, junky soil, hard as can be, it's going to freak out. We call it stress. Plant shock, or there's several transplant shocks. This is made to soothe the soil. This is a compost tea. If you folks up in the Northwest, you're used to your fish emulsion. Fish basically is ground up fish goo. This kind of looks like that without the stink. But it's basically, actually what I found is I got a brewer. I just take all the excess after they brewed it all, We churn it up, we boil it, and we have compost tea, basically. And so it's just really good at activating those organics in the soils, soothes the plant. I would use this every couple of weeks until you see the plant go, oh, it's stable. Oh, it's starting to grow. Oh, I got new leaves. Then I would not do this. It's stable. It's starting to root out. So that's your three things. One extra. This is a new one. So these are all, this is your old B1. You know, your grandparents use B1 a lot, liquid transplant shock. This is way better. The food is the same as your grandparents use. Instead of synthetic, it's now organic. The mulch is mulch is mulch. It's always been the same, just a good quality, locally harvested mulch. The new one is AquaBoost. You ever heard of soil polymers? These are crystals that hold like 200 times their weight in water. Every time I plant anything, I add some of this at the bottom of the hole. Let me tell you why. So this is a polymer, but we've infused them with mycorrhizal colonies. Mycorrhizals are living organisms that live in the soil. They're not seen, they're not bugs, but they attach themselves to the roots. They actually extend the roots out of your plants. They tickle the feet of plants to get them to grow more roots. What it does. Well, what do you need in a dry climate? As much roots as you possibly get. So I sprinkle some of this to juice the mycorrhizal colonies. It's a living, breathing thing. Once you get some, they start to grow and they start to take off. And you'll actually see them in your compost piles sometimes. You see this white kind of layer, white dusty layer. Those are mycorrhizal colonies. They're like gold. When I find those, I kind of take them, I spread them around the garden, just like fairy dust. Literally, it's like fairy dust. I spread them around. But you can kind of add some of that with this. And then I got a product that swells up and holds moisture. So all of my containers get some of this because it holds moisture. All my raised beds get this. And every time I plant a tomato or a tree or a shrub or a rose, I add some, we call them AquaBoost crystals. It's kind of freaky, unusual. This is a really unusual plant because you got to go deep into plants and what it does, but it really makes a difference. I think it'll help you as well. So usually I get a big bottle of this every season, and a little bit goes a long way. It's like this will swell up to make like 5-gallon tubs of stuff. So a few tablespoons goes a little way. It goes a long way. So that's one extra thing. That's all I had for you for today. Let's go over a couple plants. If you want to know what kind of, we're starting to get our spring mix in. So it's lilacs, forsythia, fruit trees, some shade trees are starting to come. And what will happen, I was going to mention the seventh season, I forgot about that. Right now we're in our winter season. It's winter. It's frosty, it's cold. Winter goes through till about February. Valentine's is the end of the month, somewhere in there. By March 1, we are no longer in winter. Yes, we're still freezing, but it's no longer the bitter cold, like, man, it's cold out. That's done. Now you're into just, we call it early spring. So we have winter. It's basically November. December through February is winter. Early spring is March and April. Everything is blooming. Daffodils are blooming. Forsythias are blooming. We've already harvested kales and spinach, and we're starting to see flowers like pansies and snapdragons. We're blooming like crazy. The wildflowers are starting to grow early spring. It's still frosty. We can still see snow, but we're so warm that the days are bright, the nights are chilly. It's early spring. Kind of a unique season for us. Spring season is May, first part of June. So that's true spring. You plant all your tomatoes. We're out of frost. We can just go full in, everything's gonna go in for the planting season. We're gonna go. I guess you should know when the last frost date is. Locals use Mother's Day as a holiday to mark the demarcation line between it's good frost or it's not frosting. So that's when you can start planting confidently your summer plants, your eggplants, cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, your geraniums, your zinnias, all those summer things, you plant then. Before that, you can plant earlier, like I'll cheat it. I'll plant sometime in April, but I have frost covers or I protect them some way because I know it's going to get some frost. But I have a radio show. I'm writing a garden column. I'm talking to gardeners. There's this thing that gardeners have. There's this bragging thing. I have to tell you, I just picked my first tomato, and it was so good. I'm trying to get it early so I can, there's some bragging rights. All gardeners do this. And so I'm trying to get it a little bit earlier so I can talk about it. And you can do the same thing. Just know you need to have, had a customer last year, had last frost, had all their veggies in. She went in and took all of her hats out of the closet, just threw hats over all the small plants. Anything can cover, can protect your plants. Just know you need to do that till about Mother's Day. And then we get into the spring season. Then we have perennial season. I call June its own season. We grow perennials better than anywhere else in the country, literally. Perennials are those plants that come back year after year. So I'll have a lot of perennials before that, but a lot of them are just green blobs in a bucket, and you're buying them by the little tag. In June, they're all in bloom. You can buy them by you can smell, you can touch, you can see the color. They're all in bloom. It's kind of I find it defined as itself. You can put perennials in year round. By then, you get all the choice, all the selection right then. Then you get into summer season. That's your crepe myrtles, smoke bush, chase tree, all the natives, yuccas, agaves. They start growing in summer. That's August, really July, August into September. That's the summer season. The things that love the heat, the wind, that's those things. Fall, kind of famous for fall, or maples, or aspens, or glorious, crabapples. All the blooming things are beautiful fall color. That's when the mums come in, kind of redecorate them. You're doing the pumpkins, and the gourds, the asters. That's the fall season. And that's your 7th season. Then you go to winter. So it's winter, early spring, perennial season, June, July and August, summer, fall. Did I get them all right? Winter. And if you repeat winter again, it's 7 seasons. So there you go. There's all the seasons. So it's not just 4, it's really more because of the way we go into the spring season. Here's another one. If you're from the Midwest, you're used to the season slowly getting warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer. Once you pass that frost line, it just keeps getting nicer and nicer. And at the end of the season, you kind of go, oh, it's starting to get cooler and cooler and cooler. And you kind of come off the season. Then it finally gets your first snow and frost. It gets cooler. We don't do that. We are violent. We are super nice. The spring season's here. And then the next week it is bitter cold. And we just do this huge, you can see 50 degree temperature change in spring between day and night just as the storm comes through. It is violently gets nicer and nicer and nicer. That's why you want to be careful of when you plant early spring things. Should be planted in early spring, not later. You get so many folks come in with that last crop of pansies in May. They've seen them all winter. They're beautiful. Mine are glorious right now. They're a winter and early spring bloomer. They are not a summer bloomer. As soon as you get 90 degrees, you cannot water those plants enough. They are not a summer. They're earlier season for that. But that's when you put your zinnias, your heat love, your dahlias. They love the heat. So you see that cycle through. And so you'll see at the garden center a lot of changes in the inventory mix. So we're coming in, we get our first load of lilacs here next week. Get our first load of fruit trees coming in next week. In the summer, I don't have a lilac. No one wants it. They want crepe myrtles, butterfly bush, salvia greggii, all the things that are blooming right there in their lands. That's what they want. So we trade those out, put the summer things. So you see this rotation of plants here at the garden center. It's not all things all the time. It's great things when they're in bloom and looking good, and that's the next thing, and it rotates through. So it's where it's beneficial to shop your garden center seasonally. As you can see, I'll have a crepe myrtle, a rose of Sharon in spring, one, but I'll have 10 of them, all in bloom in the summer season. So you get more choices for that. So now's the time to look to see what does a winter evergreen look like? And when does it start? You can see how green they are. This is the time to really appreciate, oh, I really like that green. I want that. You can see in your landscape, I need more. It looks too lunar escaped, there's not enough living stuff up there. Everything's dormant or deciduous. You need more evergreens out there. This is the time to spot those. Yes. Are these deer resistant? Yes. Camellias, a personal experience, deer, javelina, elk. I grew up in Skull Valley. Didn't bother. Yeah. In fact, let me do this. Sorry, I get to talking. I have 3 things for you. Thank you. Deer and rabbit resistant plant lists. I'm going to email that to you. Make sure I had them all right here. Let's see. Deer and rabbit resistant. I had, what's that one? That's that one again. I had something else. Oh, the top 10 plant guide. It's just for you folks new, truly new, and don't even know where to stop. What are the top summer bloomers? What's the top spring bloomers? What are the top shade trees? What are the top fruit trees? It doesn't explain them. It just goes, here's the top 10. By no means all, just the most popular. So it's the most popular plants. And then I just wrote an article last week on the basically plant-friendly house plants. That's it. So if you're an indoor plant, you got cats and a new puppy, these are the plants that won't poison them to eat them. So I got those 3 things. It sounds like I need to add for you folks up. Put your email down on there if you want that. I'll take a moment this afternoon. It'll be in your inbox. Probably be real simple. Thanks for coming. Here's the 3 links. Look at it on your phone, desktop, or wherever. So it'll be there for you this afternoon. Might be a little late, probably after lunchtime or so. And if you could, some of you, it's me doing it. I don't see as well as I used to. Some of your handwriting is terrible. You could take a moment and just be a little more cleaner because I'm interpreting, is that a 6? Is that a B? What are they doing? I can interpret a lot, but just a little bit, a moment helps me input it correctly. Plants. You're right, this stuff is a little earthy smelling.
Yeah, just a little.
But at least the manure is deodorized. Hollies grow really well here. Anything with a thick, waxy leaf grows really well because its wax is like a defense for the arid climate. So what you'll get is your hollies. This is a Goshiki holly. It's not really a holly, but it's noted for being 5 colors throughout the season. It changes colors the season morph. Nice evergreen. I've got personal experience with this one. Deer. I don't want deer. I know javelina don't bother the rabbits. Those are my nemesis right now. So the javelina are my thing. They come in the front yard and they like to just. It's not right. They're not allowed in my yard. I've got an electric fence and all kinds of stuff to keep them out. They still find their way every once in a while, but they seem to leave this one alone. Nice evergreen, grows in a container in the ground. Where I find it grows best, that June in the middle of the day is hard on plants. It's hot. You keep it out of that midday June heat, this thing thrives. So morning sun, evening sun, north side. It's a nice bright plant. Looks really great in a container. I mean, this is a holly. I take one of these home, put it by the front door. I don't even plant it. I just like the berries. It just screams holidays and winter. They grow well here. In them, we're protected, not full sun. Folks from the East Coast, this is a full sun plant, not here. It says it will grow in full sun, and it will, but it just won't, you won't like it. It'll have burned tips. It'll just look like it's been beat up. Why do that when you plant a red tip Lutetia or a silverberry native, a cotoneaster, so many great plants that love the full sun? And so you'll have that list here shortly. So top 10 plant list. Okay, hollies are great. Lots of hollies, but I brought this. This is just, this is the color of the year, by the way. Aqua. That's why I brought this one. You'll see a lot of earth, it's like southwesterny kind of blues. That's going to trend this year, I predict. You'll see it in all your magazines, especially garden magazines. You're going to see that trending. Or at least if you believe Pantone. I think Pantone turns like beige or something. That's no way people are going to go beige. We're good. We've done that. We're done. But isn't that pretty? It just kind of goes just like that. It just pops. So easy to grow. All right. There. Number 1 selling evergreen by far. Kind of boring. Alberta spruce. Slow growing. This is last year's growth. So if you want something by the front door, on those pillars on either side, a container, on either side of the garage. The reason I brought this one was this is one that's so slow growing. We sell them from this size to this size. Buy the size you want. You don't want to wait to grow this because it will be a decade before it gets from this to any kind of size. This is where you want to stretch your landscape dollar, spend it on things that are slow growing, spend more, get the bigger one of these. You can cut back on the fast growing like honeysuckles, you get the small one of those. Red tip Botania is a weed. So you can kind of you can spread that landscape dollar out, make it go farther just by. This is one you don't want to skip. Get the size you like, because it's going to be that size until you sell your house. So Alberta spruce. Lots of spruce. Spruce Mountains right here. So Colorado spruce grows wild. It's a native. Literally up at the next elevation up. A white fir, conical fir. It's a native. Grows wild. And so you'll see a lot of that kind of stuff. This is one that you all are very familiar with if you're from the Midwest or East Coast. These are euonymus. Don't ask me how to spell it. You can take a picture of it. It's euonymus. Great evergreen. It's famous for its hedges. So you line in a driveway, you want to block a window. The negative with these are they take full sun. They're just bulletproof. Deer and rabbits like to eat them. So you'll have the deer and rabbit list here shortly. This plant will not be on that list. But there's some places that you can plant this, backyard or whatever. Some of you aren't dealing with deer. That's not yet by hills. They roam free out there. So certain neighborhoods have a lot, some don't. But euonymus, you'll see a lot of it. They don't bother. This one, it's probably my favorite fast growing. This is a fast plant. I mean, it's going to grow this much, like this year. This is cotoneaster, red clusterberry cotoneaster. It's famous for big clusters of white flowers that turn into big clusters of red berries. It's an evergreen. This is its winter color. It's got kind of a purpley look. It looks innocent, but small children and dogs have been lost in this plant. It just grows so fast. And so this one don't put it next to the house. It's going to be a 10 by 10 by 10 beast. You have to prune it all the time. Put it out by the back corner, by the lot out there. This is a screening plant. You got a neighbor who likes bathing in their hot tub, with or without. I don't want to see that. This is your plant. Just be gone. Class A RV, they're so proud of, on your back property line. I don't want to see that. I want to see it gone or cotoneaster, make it go away. So you plant, it's a good living screen kind of thing. And animals don't bother this. Much tougher than red tip Botania, which I don't think I brought that one up. Yeah, I didn't bring that one up here because I don't want you selling it. I don't want you buying that one. So number one seller, but to my friends, it gets deer eat it. It gets disease. It's hard to fertilize enough. It's yellow in the winter. It's a high maintenance plant. It does grow fast. It's a high maintenance plant. I'll make more money on you after the sale of the plant. You just keep your mildews down, keep the bugs off of it. This one gets no bugs, no mildews, just nothing eats it. It's just bulletproof. This is a much lower maintenance plant in the long run for the same amount of money. It's just people don't know this one as much as they do the red tip Botania. But red clusterberry cotoneaster. Brought these. So we don't grow a lot of cactus. A lot of folks come down and I want saguaro in my yard. You can't have it. It's not going to grow here, at least not in the winter. I want my big old man cactus. I want my big cactus gardens. You can't have that here if they don't grow. You can have prickly pear, some choyas, maybe a barrel cactus, possibly if you're a really good gardener. It's probably going to burn out every few years. But you can have yuccas, agaves. These grow wild here. This is a number one seller. This is called a red yucca. It's the most popular. It's about knee high. It has these beautiful red flowers that hummingbirds just think they've died about them. It's just beautiful plants. This is an evergreen plant. All I've done, so I pruned up my yard already. So I took those flowers, I just cut them off as close as I could. That's all. That's the only maintenance you do with them. That's it. They're just consistent plants. The mistake I've had a lot of folks, if you got a gardener that helps you, they think this is like a grass. I've seen this so many times, I'm embarrassed. They take them and cut them off like grass. And they just took all the foliage off. And it can take years before it recovers from that. That's just a total rookie mistake. And the homeowner didn't advise him going, You shouldn't have done that. So smack. So red yucca is good. I've got a new one coming. In fact, if you're part of our list, I'll make sure you all are part of our list. One of the things we're going to feature, we got a new manzanita, a yellow yucca, a new globe mallow. It's called Orange Crush. It's a native. We got a whole native thing we're going to pre-sell. If you want, the only way you're going to get them, I think, is if you order them ahead of time, because they're going to sell out like that. If I even have enough. But I've got a cluster, a mix of native plants that are kind of butterfly attractors. But one of the 4 plants is this bright yellow. That's never been seen before. It'll be a new introduction for this year. But yuccas, all the yuccas. It's the same thing. Just gets gold. If you got a lot of dark colored rock in your yard, sometimes this will disappear in it. This will show up. So this gets a red flower, this gets a white flower. There's different ways, different colors, different textures to play with yuccas. What else? Number one, I guess we got to go. Number one seller in the country, boxwood. That's all it does. Animals don't eat it. Kind of boring. It's bulletproof. Just can't kill it. It's a boxwood. Number one seller. Most of you know what it is. A lot of you don't know what this is, which would be a competitor to that. This is called Indian hawthorn, Raphioleptus. Indian hawthorn is its common name. It's a very fragrant pink flower. Gets up about this high, kind of spreads like this. Nice evergreen. Loves the heat, loves the sun, loves growing here with a bright, fragrant pink flower. I mean, this is a better choice than box. If you have a choice, plant this, not this. Although this is a pollinator. Notice the bees still bloom. You don't see the bloom because it's real close to the stems. But very early spring, like March, when the honeybees first come out, you'll see them foraging on this. So if you're into pollinators, this actually is a very good pollinator plant. This and rosemary, kind of the 2 things that bloom first, because they're real hungry. They've been in those hives all winter. They wake up and they're looking for anything that's in bloom. That's a good pollinator. I know it doesn't get a bad rap, but I gotta explain it. This is a juniper. Junipers, all I hear is, I've got allergies to junipers. You do. You have allergies to male junipers. You don't have allergies to the females. There's a man and there's a woman in the juniper family. The men throw off pollen that is so thick, it looks like the hillside is on fire. Literally, I've seen that. The females have no pollen. They have berries. So as you're walking through the forest, you see a juniper with berries on it. It's female. You can impress your other garden friends. That's female. Oh, that one's no berries. That's a male. And one male will think he's going to pollinate every female on that side of the mountain. And so we know that about plants. And so we only sell female junipers because we don't want you to have allergies. But they just grow so well out here. They're native, huge juniper forests. So you know they're going to adapt. Nothing really goes after them. They're just bulletproof. So that's a good, there's a lot of junipers. There's 2 types of main plants you'll find. Upright evergreens and then spreading evergreens. They're sold 2 ways. This happens to be a spreader, obviously, so it's good ground cover. But I also have the same thing in an upright form. So if you need a windbreak or privacy screens, there's the upright variety. Just junipers, if you just have a hard time gardening, junipers are a great way to go. These are low care, low water, low maintenance. Oh, what else I got? I'll leave you with this. Now I gotta leave you with 2 things, 2 boring things, but you need to know, or you'll have issues this coming spring. Gophers. Whenever gophers are thinned out in the winter by harsh winter, snow, freezing, they have not had any of that. And it's a free reign. They're showing up everywhere. And they're eating the roots under the ground. A pocket gopher has a little mound in the yard. Sometimes you'll see where they threw the dirt out. Sometimes you won't. But we don't have moles here, which is like a supersite gopher. We have pocket gophers. That's what we have. That's what you're dealing with. Not moles. From the East Coast, moles. Here it's pocket gophers. The reason they call them that, they've got a flap of skin underneath their chin where they throw the dirt, a big shovel. They run out to the entrance, they shove it all out. They're making holes. They're making tunnels and beds underneath the ground. They're eating the roots of your trees and your shrubs. If you have gophers, you do not want to let those go. They will eat your plants until they're dead. Little I've seen trees blow over in the wind because the roots are gone. We make these things, are called, it's a new planting. This works great, especially new gardeners. I'm guessing there's some of you in here. This is basically a great big old, there's a couple of them in here. Basically, we just made a stainless steel, come on, behave, I'm on camera, sorry about that. It's just basically it's like chainmail for plants. So you take your big 5-gallon plant it in there, and stainless steel is not going to rot. It's not going to rust in the ground. It's small enough where they can't, even the babies cannot get through it. So the roots can go through it this way. They can eat the roots out here, but if you can keep this much alive, the plant will not die. So if you've got heavy gopher problems, this is a great solution. You've got a 1 gallon, 5 gallon, 15 gallon sizes. Just be aware. If not, if you actually have gophers, I'm a gopher killer. I know how to kill them. I'll show you how to do that if you want. There are ways, but that's not for this class. But I just wanted to mention it to you because they're so active, because it's been so mild. We're seeing customers come in. The other one that we're seeing very early on, way too, put this way later, way too early, we're seeing a bark beetle or Ips beetle. There's a tiny, cutest little beetle you've ever seen. It's a tiny little thing, little black. And they burrow through your evergreens, pine, spruce. They burrow through the bark. They eat the cambium layer, the living tissue underneath the bark. They eat that until the tree is girdled. Come summer, it'll flush new growth and just collapse and die. We are already starting to see that particular bug. We never see them this early. Usually it's March. They're at least a month early. You should be aware, if you've got evergreens, especially native, some of you built your house around this beautiful pinyon pine or ponderosas, built your deck around it, treat those. Treat them with tree and shrub drench. You do not need to be an arborist to protect your trees. You can do this yourself. Let me simplify. This is it's a systemic, so the plant will actually absorb it at the root level, underneath the bark, and it goes up the tree and then taints the underneath the bark level. And if there are beetles in there, it will kill them or shoot them off. And then it also puts a barrier so they won't want to come into that tree. So it's twofold. And this is the better technology. There's two drenches. This one actually taints the wood that's already there. And then as it pushes new growth in the spring, it actually will travel into the new growth. The previous technology didn't do that. It just treated the current tree and then the new growth is left wanting. Anyway, this is the way you use this. Just real simple. Take a tape measure, measure the bark, however many inches that is. That's how many ounces of this you need. And it's in the label. It's just real simple. That's how you use it. If you got some nice big evergreens, if you have evergreens, you should treat your evergreens with this, like sooner rather than later. Usually I'll put an all-call red article on this in March. We're just seeing it too soon. And they're already doing damage. So to my friends, you kind of let them know, hey, keep on the lookout. This is something you're going to do annually. If you've got pinyon pine scale will be with, I'm guessing that will be next month. Usually, again, this stuff happens in March. There's a little tiny bug that pierces the needles. So you see on the needles, it's a little black dot on the needle. That's a scale. They literally suck the juice out of the plant until it dies. It's a very common problem. They've obliterated entire hillsides. This will work on scale, bark beetle, any of that kind of. It's good to protect your evergreens. Spider mites down in summer. Just something you're probably going to do every year. And you put the amount of ounces in there. So let's say it's 12 ounce. It's a 12-ounce tree, 12-inch tree. You need 12 ounces of this, 32. You put it in your watering can, top it off with water. You pour it right at the base of the tree. Kind of counterintuitive. We're all taught to put the fertilizer at the drip line further out. You don't do that with drenches. Put it right at the trunk, right where the trunk meets the ground. That's where you put it. The plant will absorb it from there and go up the tree. Kind of travels slowly, about a foot a day or so. This might take 2 or 3 weeks to treat a bigger tree. But that's just something to put on your radar. We're seeing it since we came back this winter. We're starting to see customers come in with bark beetle.
Is now a good time?
Now's a good time. I would say fertilize. Now it's so warm, you're seeing plants actively put buds on. you're seeing a bloom. Shoot, they're confused. So that sap is starting to flow already, and that's probably why the bark beetle are out already. So they've been hibernating in the trees. Now they're flying around going, hey, where's the new food? I've got to have a party. A bark beetle never shows up with just one. It's always a party. It's always like dozens and dozens. They invite friends. Bring the chips and salsa. Then we're going to parties here. So then when you open up that bark, you'll see dozens and dozens, if not more, bark beetle underneath the bark. So just something to watch. Got a whole other class just on that. I thought I'd bring it up to you all this just to look. If you look at your pine, it looks like someone took a needle and poked a hole in it, in the bark. That's an exit tunnel of a bark beetle. You know you have them in that trunk. You see a hole in the bark. If you see a dot on any of your needles, especially pinyon pines, that is a scale. You can't see the bug, but underneath this scaly outer, that there's a bug there that's eating that plant, that's sucking it dry. You should treat that. With that, I've got an hour and a half. I will wait as long as you want. I'll answer questions as long as you want. I'm not going anywhere. Look for an email from me. For you folks online, if you want that, just type it in real quick. I'll make sure you're added to that list. And before I let you go, two things. I want to thank Rio for teaching last week's houseplant class. Rio, you were awesome. That's her very first class. She's been with me 3 years. I said, listen, you're helping me run the place. You got to help me run the classes. So I'm going to cycle through my horticulturalists more. You see more guest speakers or just the staff presenting. She's a houseplant nut. And she's also my flower, vegetable, herb manager. So I kind of thank you, Rio. And then I'll just let you clap and go, thank you very much. So, it makes me feel better. Thanks you all. For you.